I'm sorry. Don't look for me.
Gregory, my husband, said that and then hung up the phone. No matter how many times I tried calling back, there was no connection anymore. After giving birth, I returned to the hospital holding my baby, only to find my home locked and inaccessible. When I tried to contact Gregory, who was supposed to pick me up, the words he said to me were, "I'm tired, I sold the house," and "Don't look for me." Rather than wondering how this happened, my mind was occupied with how to protect the little life in my arms. Anyway, I have to do something. I have no parents to rely on, and there is no one to turn to at such a time. Even if I could work, I couldn't do it with a baby. And even if I managed, I wouldn't have a place to stay until I got my first paycheck. I was spinning in circles, unable to think of a solution. That's right, the bank savings. Remembering the savings I had set aside for my child, I hurried to the bank. The balance is $1? Why? Looking at the statement, I saw that almost all the money I had deposited a few days ago was withdrawn. The ATM card, I'm sure I left it in the drawer at home. Gregory would certainly know where the ATM card is and its PIN. I was shocked that he would go as far as to use someone else's account. Did he ever intend to raise our child? I wasn't even informed about what happened to my belongings in the house. Gregory, who sold our house, must have withdrawn the money from my account and sold off valuable items. My little hope was crushed by Gregory, and while I should have been aimlessly wondering, I found myself standing in front of my house again. From a nearby house, I could hear the cheerful voices of a family and the sound of a TV. The news reported that the chairman of the famous Blue Horizon enterprise had passed away, leaving behind a vast fortune. There is money and happiness somewhere, but what can I do? I have nothing. Grace, how can I raise you? Feeling utterly left behind in this world, I hugged the warmth in my arms. Rechecking my wallet, I found it contained less than $50. With this, we wouldn't last more than a few days. With a baby who cries at night, finding even a cheap hostel to stay in seemed impossible. As I soothed my crying baby, night fell. I sat down on a covered bench in the park, hoping that at least my child wouldn't get cold. At least I should borrow money from a consumer finance company tomorrow. The thought of being homeless alone crossed my mind, but supported by the warmth of my child, I struggled to find even a slight solution. That's when an unknown number called me, and this one call drastically changed my life. A few hours later, Grace and I were in a room at a luxury hotel.
Stay here tonight. I've paid for the room, and diapers and baby supplies will be delivered later. I've also arranged Christina's clothes, and if you need anything else, just ask the front desk.
Thanks to someone's help, I was able to stay here until I could stabilize my life. Instead of doubting the sudden help, I was deeply relieved that I didn't end up homeless with my child. After a good night's sleep, I had the mental space to think about the future. It's better for Grace if her parents are together. If there's some misunderstanding, resolving it might let us live happily as a family of 3. I imagined trying again with Gregory, but no matter how much I thought about it alone, I could only imagine Gregory abandoning us again. I can't involve my daughter with such a person anymore. I have to manage on my own. Knowing that Gregory's phone was still unreachable, I sent an email anyway, only for him to call immediately.
Hello, I saw your email, so we're really getting divorced, right?
Yes, after what you have done, there's no way we can continue as a couple.
That's a relief for me. I'm glad to be rid of someone useless like you.
Ignoring Gregory's words, I arranged to meet him in the lobby of the hotel I was staying at. The next day, when Gregory arrived at the meeting place and saw me coming out of the hotel elevator, he looked puzzled.
This is a luxury hotel. You were staying here?
Who cares about that? What matters is you'll divorce me, right?
That's the plan, but how are you going to live with no money?
Despite being the one who drove me to this situation, Gregory looked at me with disdain, so I answered him coldly. I'm about to inherit a small fortune, so I can raise Grace on my own without you. My words must have surprised him. Gregory looked astonished for a moment.
Don't lie, you said you have no relatives.
I thought so too, but I was wrong. Then Gregory started eyeing me suspiciously.
How much did you inherit?
Enough. Enough to ensure Grace and I won't struggle. At first, Gregory seemed doubtful. But after seeing me staying in a luxury hotel and wearing a brand of dress I never had before, he believed me. Then, he looked at me with a greedy expression.
Christina, why don't we start over? A child needs a father.
What are you talking about all of a sudden? Forgot what you did? I have no intention of being with someone who changes their attitude the moment they find out I've inherited money. When I presented the divorce papers I had prepared, Gregory unbelievably tore them up.
What are you doing? You're just trying to keep the inheritance to yourself, aren't you?
You're the one who sold our house and abandoned us.
I will never divorce you. Think it over. I'll give you a week.
With that, Gregory left without giving me a chance to stop in. I had hoped he might show some concern for our daughter, but I was utterly dismayed by his selfishness. Over the next week, I was busy with inheritance and moving arrangements. I ignored the many emails and calls from Gregory until he finally reached his limit and demanded to meet at the hotel cafe, setting a date and time. On the appointed day, Gregory, who chose the time himself, arrived late as if it didn't matter.
Christina, have you decided to give us another try?
I used to admire his attitude for not making me feel the hardship, but now I realize he was just detached from reality. How could I change my mind after how we parted?
Then lend me $3,000 from your inheritance. That shouldn't be a problem.
I doubt you would repay it.
Don't worry, I'm now an employee at the famous Blue Horizon Enterprise. I can pay it back easily.
When did you change jobs? But it doesn't matter where you work.
I switched for my dear wife and daughter. I'm family-oriented, you know.
He looked at me from below, a gesture he often used when we were dating to appear endearing. I had been fooled by that attitude before, but he seemed to think it would still work. You even took the money from Grace's account and you still need more?
Don't make a scene.
I don't want to see your face anymore.
Fine, I'll do it. Divorce, but you will regret it.
I had a bad feeling about Gregory's unwarranted confidence.
Remember, we haven't filed the divorce papers yet.
So what?
You have inherited property, right? That makes it marital property, so half of it belongs to me.
I was surprised at where he got such knowledge, but Gregory was grinning. However, I have also been preparing for the past week.
I'll write the divorce papers right away, but make sure to split the inheritance.
About that, first, take a look at this. I handed Gregory a document. I never imagined you were cheating right after our marriage. Before our last meeting, I had hired a private detective to follow Gregory, wanting to know why he abandoned us. The investigation report revealed things I never imagined. Gregory had approached a woman he met right after marrying me, claiming he was single and well off. He spent lavishly on luxury cars and entertainment, financing it all with debt. Eventually, unable to keep up with his repayments, he sold our house and fled to his mistress.
Why did you investigate me without permission?
I had no choice, given your situation.
We're divorcing, so it shouldn't matter to you.
Gregory seemed to have forgotten he tore up the divorce papers a week ago. I'll be taking $20,000 in alimony and $500 a month in child support.
Why should I pay? You're the one who wanted the kid.
Though it was true that we had a child unexpectedly before marriage, Gregory had agreed to raise the child together. I couldn't forgive him for now blaming everything on me. With all this evidence, you can't escape paying.
This is all so frustrating. Fine, if this will end it.
Gregory signed the divorce papers I had prepared, sitting arrogantly on the sofa.
Your inheritance seems substantial, staying in luxury hotels and all.
Yes, Grace and I have enough to not worry about living, even enough to never work again.
Good, then paying alimony and child support won't be a problem.
Ignoring Gregory's smug comment, I introduced him to the lawyer waiting at the next table. Did you think I would come alone without any preparations?
A lawyer? Doesn't matter. I'm getting half of your inheritance. Anyway.
The lawyer explained on my behalf, and hearing it, Gregory's face turned pale.
Inheritance isn't marital property? That's a lie.
On the contrary, the money from the house you sold is marital property, and you also spent Grace's savings. Looks like you'll owe even more.
I signed, thinking I would get your money. I can't pay that amount.
I had the lawyer securely hold the documents to avoid another scene. Incredibly, Gregory lunged at me.
That signature doesn't count.
A well-dressed man intervened, restraining Gregory on the sofa. Ethan?
I'm glad I could help in time this time.
Uncle Ethan smiled at me. He was the one who rescued Grace and me when we were about to be homeless. That life-changing phone call that day, initially, it was the lawyer beside me who called, but when I went to the hotel, I met Ethan, a well-dressed man.
I'm your Uncle Ethan. You have your father Benjamin's eyes and nose.
I didn't believe him immediately, but he showed me his ID and proved we were related. I was shocked to discover I had relatives after thinking I was alone all my life. The lawyer said my grandfather was a well-known company chairman. I heard the news about the chairman's death standing in front of my house that day. I never knew Dad was his son.
But they had a bad relationship. Benjamin left home and became estranged. Dad regretted it.
So the inheritance for me?
Dad always wanted Benjamin to have part of his wealth. He searched for him for years. Though Benjamin is gone, he wanted you, his daughter Christina, to inherit it.
Ethan bowed as he said this. It was hard to believe, but as someone with no other options holding a baby, I had to believe it. I felt like I was dreaming as I went through the inheritance process. Holding the document stating the large sum, I was relieved I could provide for my child. And I felt the presence of my deceased father protecting me and Grace, and I cried. Ethan then handed his business card to Gregory, who had just learned about my inheritance.
Excuse me for the late introduction.
Gregory snatched the card and his face paled immediately.
Chairman of Blue Horizon Enterprises? My apologies for the oversight.
Yes, the person recently reported deceased in the news was the former chairman of Blue Horizon Enterprises, and Ethan had succeeded him.
Thank you for hiring me at your company.
Realizing who he was dealing with, Gregory kept bowing.
Sit down, please. Yes.
After that, Gregory's demeanor changed noticeably. Perhaps out of concern for Ethan?
You'll pay the agreed alimony and child support to Christina, right? But she inherited a fortune, so she doesn't need my alimony. Christina, say something. You'll forgive me, right?
That's not happening. You'll pay for everything.
If I pay what Christina demands, I'll be left with nothing.
Ethan spoke softly to the still resistant Gregory.
If someone who can't take responsibility for their action is employed at our company, I might need to have a talk with HR and Gregory's boss. That would be a problem. I just got this job. I can't lose it. It's convenient for others to suffer, but not for you, isn't it? I'm sorry. You're apologizing to the wrong person.
Reluctantly, Gregory apologized to me.
Christina, I'm sorry. I've signed all the necessary documents. Can't you forgive me?
Even now, Gregory's misplaced pride prevented a sincere apology. I'm not planning to forgive you right now. You haven't made amends for what you have done.
I have already signed the papers and handed over the divorce application. What more do you want?
You will need to fully pay the child support and alimony. Only then it's over.
Don't be so petty. To me, Christina's point sounds perfectly reasonable.
Before Gregory could argue further, Ethan, losing patience, agreed with me, silencing Gregory.
If there's any delay in payments, let me know. I'll make sure it's deducted from his salary. I'll talk to HR myself.
After Ethan left, Gregory tried to seek my forgiveness, but I coldly informed him with a smile. Oh, I told your mistress everything about you being married and not wealthy. She said she never wants to see you again. Gregory tried to speak but ultimately said nothing, visibly disappointed. Later, Gregory was kicked out by his mistress and spent most of his salary on alimony, child support, and debt repayment. When he missed a payment once, the chairman personally discussed the matter, ensuring no further delays. He was transferred to a less important role, losing any chance of promotion, and became uncomfortable at work. As for me, I lived peacefully with my child, benefiting from the inheritance and alimony. Ethan and his family have formed a good relationship with us. Ethan is slowly teaching me how to manage the substantial funds. With a clear plan for the future, I intend to continue living a warm and comfortable life with Grace.